Train the muscles, not the joints.
But yeah, right now I'm going to do some bent over rows. And if you guys are new here and you haven't watched my video called The Most Misunderstood Exercise, then please don't comment about bent over rows and having to bend over all the way, all this kind of stuff. It's all BS, and it goes back right to my point I just made about the dumbbell press and stuff, is that you want to use the body efficiently. And so many people think that if they make a weak link an even weaker link in an exercise, that somehow it naturally gets stronger enough to catch up with the main muscle groups. But the truth is that your main muscle groups are always going to be stronger, and if you want to activate them, you don't want to just exploit the smaller little muscle groups. Now you can do that if you feel there's an injury that needs to be addressed or you need some rehabilitation in that area. I'm all about that. And I've talked about this in videos where, using certain ranges of motion and super lightweight can help rehabilitate an area or recalibrate certain areas. But to say that that's the only way you're supposed to train, you will miss out on a lot of gains, because what will happen is that those big muscle groups never get challenged. It's always just the little ones, but the big ones never get challenged enough to really grow. And you see this in the exercise, the bend over row, probably more than any other exercise. I've seen guys, they did bend over all the way, they end up using a lot of rear delts, some biceps, right? But they barely ever have any back. They have a small back, and they don't get any sort of development, right? And it's because they haven't found a way to recruit the back muscles. And recruiting the back muscles doesn't have to do with bending over all the way. It can be at 45-degree angle and so forth. That's fine, because it just depends on how the bar is traveling. But anyway, if you haven't seen the video, please watch it. It's gonna change your life. Seriously, when it comes to the back training.
Mountain. Like I was hiding. See? Yeah. I'm all about people, doing a repetition, whatever type of exercise they're doing, and doing it in a way that accesses the muscle they want to hit, right? But what we're getting into with a lot of the, let's just say the exercise purists on the internet right now, is that they say you're not doing the repetition properly unless you're doing it where, nothing in the body is moving except for the joint that you want to, access. So say basically I'm doing a bicep curl and I'm doing barbell curls. If I move forward or move back, or there's a little bit, a tiny bit of swing. It's not even swing, but just almost like body English. There's a bit of body English. They start to say, oh, that's not a right rep. That's the wrong rep. Now, what I'm going to correct everybody about right now is that whatever puts the most amount of tension on the muscle belly is the correct rep. It's not about whether your body moves or not, or whether the rep looks pretty or looks strict, right? Because sometimes by moving the body subtly, you may blow by a super weak link in the exercise, right? So say at the bottom portion, and say that you're having, let's just say you hit failure faster in the bottom portion than you do in the mid portion. One could say by going too strict, you're never really accessing the middle portion of the repetition. You're never really challenging the muscles responsible for the middle portion of the rep, right? So a lot of people want to put themselves in an awkward position, like totally lock the elbows and relax and then bend the arm, and they think that somehow they're going to manifest more tension on the muscle belly that way. But if you give them heavier weight, right, and they keep that arm slightly bent at the bottom, keep that tension on the muscle, and then use a tiny bit of body English to get through that bottom part of the rep, and then they can use muscle power to lift the weight the remaining part of the way, and then actually also get the benefit of the negative part of the rep on the way down. We know 100% that they're getting more tension overall in that bicep from that type of bicep curl. So what I'm trying to say to you is that it's good to play with, super strict reps here and there, but if that's all you're doing, you may notice that you get very little muscular development in certain areas. And the same thing with the bent over row. Like a lot of guys get obsessed with bending over all the way, and there's this obsession with bending over all the way, and then somehow they think they're going to get more lats from that. Well, for me, I find the bar hits my knees first of all. Second of all, I get more shoulder movement from that, and I get very little lat. But when I load up the bar and I put a lot of weight on there, and I find myself in the ideal position, which is at about 45 degrees, right? Like I'm bent over about 45 degrees. I find I get a massive amount of lat pull and also trap pull from the exercise. So it doesn't look totally strict, but I'm getting way more tension on those areas and therefore getting more results. So that's why my back is probably one of my best body parts, right? Is that I've found a way to access those fibers, and being super strict wasn't the best way to do it.
So first I warm up the bar here. I'm gonna go a bit heavier. I think, yeah. Wait. Now, a lot of you guys know, who have bought my 2-day split on my website, that I do, sometimes concentrate on different areas of the muscle at once and then others, right? So what I mean by this is that, say when I'm training back, sometimes I'll train all my sets towards more lat training, like pull downs or pullovers, reverse grip chins or overhand grip chins, And then another back day, I might just do rows. And the neat part about this is that when you concentrate the forces on one area, like say lats, now today, when I'm doing my bent over rows, I'm feeling way more muscle activation in the lats. So sometimes getting that little bit of soreness helps you out. Now, this is why I always have the argument against people who say, oh, you have to be fully recovered, otherwise you can't gain muscle. Well, I noticed when I've got a tiny bit of soreness or tightness there, my groove is better, my strength is better, my pump is better, the look of the muscle is better. Every single marker I can measure for bodybuilding is better when I train, when my muscles are a tiny bit tighter, a tiny bit sore from the previous workout. I'm not talking about major sore, but just a bit, right? So that's how I time my workouts. Guys that say you got to be recovered for a week, like, the whole Menser method stuff, that's bullshit to me. Like, it doesn't work at all. If I even take 2 or 3 days off and I come back to the gym, my body is like behind. It feels sluggish, doesn't feel like it wants to train. It's very difficult to manifest the energy and the groove. So many of the markers of natural bodybuilding success are off for me that it's easy for me to make the decision to train the way that I train. So yeah, if you haven't experienced it, try one of my workout programs on my website. You're gonna notice there's a method to my madness. It's not just me just making shit up, you know what I mean? So yeah, a little bit of sore, big lat pump, pretty good. So let's add another plate, and I'm gonna go heavy today for 3 sets or 4 sets, and then I have to go eat something. Let's go get some chicken, see? Not a really long workout, but pretty intense. And I might do a few sets of biceps later or something when I come back after I fill myself up full of chicken. Now, just because that's not strict doesn't mean I'm not recruiting a hell of a lot of back. So that's the thing. I've learned that over 35 years that strict sometimes works against you. It's good to do strict and then the non-strict stuff. Both. It's 2 variations, and both stimulate the muscle in very different ways, right? When they activate different muscles. So that's why you see me do heavier bent over rows from time to time. I feel like there's this certain kind of pull I really get in the lats that I just don't get when I'm using lighter weight. It's like the heavier weight imposes upon you the need for extra intensity and effort that just cannot be accessed if I use just one plate aside or something like that. It's just not the same. So that's just something to take into account. I'm not saying to go heavy all the time. but you might feel the need to once in a while. That's really my point. Now, some of you guys are asking me, or have asked me, you know, how, like, where do I get my music from, and so forth. And the truth is that the music is my own creation. I create my own music. I use Logic Pro X, I use software and stuff, and I make my own music for this channel. So those are the beats that you're hearing when I'm doing training footage and stuff. So yeah, if you want to have that music, you can access it on my website, naturalglandbodybuilding.com, and you can download an album and listen to it or whatever. Or you can just listen to these vlogs, and you know, you just play this stuff when you're working out. So that's kind of why I make this stuff, is that it's kind of a way we can hang out. If you're training, you can kind of listen to what I'm doing, and it's almost like having a training partner. And yeah, maybe a couple of things will come out along the way that help you when it comes down to accessing more muscle mass, right? So yeah, so one concept I want to talk to you about, and I've mentioned this before, but I think I've mentioned almost everything before. It's pretty much the truth, because I made over 1,000 videos, right? But one thing is that by pre-exhausting the day before a muscle, like making it sore, you know, whether you're doing flies the day before and then you do bench press the next day, or whether you're doing dumbbell pullovers the day before and then doing lat pull downs or chin ups the next day, you're going to notice that there's a certain type of really good feeling that you get from that. Just like bent over rows, I showed you guys on the incline when I'm doing, you know, the reverse or the bent over laterals, right? And then I go into the skiing motion, like this motion here, right? When I'm on the incline, and I really access the lats and the rear delts. The next day when you do bent over rows, it's like your body, like your back is screaming. It's like, so if you're not getting, you know, a lot of activation in a certain area, try doing an isolation movement the day before you do the compound. If you're noticing in the actual workout, it's not really working, like the pre-exhaustion thing, try the pre-exhaustion method, but the day before. Do like 2 or 3 sets of a certain exercise, take it to failure, you know, safely and all that, right? Then the next day, do the compound movement and see how you feel. It might open up your entire universe, seriously. It's crazy how that works. Now, another thing I'm going to share with you guys, this is a secret. If you guys have stayed tuned this long, then you're going to actually get a secret here. This is a pretty crazy one, because it's something that I've experienced over and over again. One of the things is that if you notice that you're training stagnant, and say you're trying different exercises and stuff and whatever, but you just notice you're just not getting the pumps, you're not getting the good feeling in the muscle, one thing to do is to do like a saturation day or two of just straight protein and, you know, mild amount of fat. Don't go crazy. Like say you're eating chicken, you're having some animal fat and stuff, that's great. And have eggs, you know, full eggs and stuff like that. But cut the carbs down quite a bit. Just cut the carbs down, right? Maybe only one meal or no meals of starches, you know, depending on your threshold, right? Do that for a couple days, then return back to the lower fat diet and just eat, you know, the protein and the starches, the good quality starches or whatever type of carb that you use, but stay a little bit lower fat. And you're going to notice that the uptake of the carbohydrates might be more efficient. So this is something to play around with your diet. Now you keep the protein still around 1 gram per pound of body weight. You know, so if you're a 200-pound guy, you know, you're eating about 160 grams of protein to 200 grams of protein, somewhere around there, if not more. If you eat more, that's fine. But just try this out because it may help reset some of your blood sugar sensitivity. And I notice whenever I accidentally do this, my pumps get insane. I feel totally different when I come back into the gym. So I think sometimes there's a certain sort of, let's just say, burden that the carbohydrates may have on the blood sugar system. I don't know how to explain it scientifically, but when I take a break for a day or so and then come back, then I notice that my body seems to really saturate itself in a positive way. Nice. So I hope this workout helped you guys out. Hope you got a few tips along the way. If you haven't tuned into my podcast yet, make sure you check that out. And thanks to the patient supporters that support that and this channel. And motion.